You're
Mhm.
listening to Cinema Snarks. I'm Larry,
And I'm Ren.
and we are going to tell you how we really feel. And today we are telling you how we really feel about Old, the latest feature from director M. Night Shyamalan. Ren, I'm already hearing weird noise.
I felt like M. Night Shyamalan was a good call for a snarky podcast about movies because aside from the first two films he's made, everything has been a great disappointment.
Yeah,
Um,
he was on a
so,
on a little bit of a redemption tour.
yes, I listened to your review of it, just like the beginning parts of it. You tried to be very measured about it, but there's no reason to
God,
be measured here.
no,
You're
yeah.
like,
So
it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And I would tend to agree.
yeah, I
The last,
expected disaster. If I'm being honest, from that trailer, I was expecting disaster.
yes,
It's not quite a disaster. It's
it,
not good, but
yeah,
it's not the worst. It's not in the bottom three, actually, M. Night
no,
Shyamalan films. So there we
no.
go. That's something.
And this is something we'll talk about. The one redeeming thing I think that he has is he manages to hire. He's got enough money to hire really good actors that I at least like watching the actors work long enough to like not care that his plots are nonsense, garbage, bullshit.
Yeah.
Um,
So this film, it takes place on a fantastical beach where a family takes a vacation to get away from their life stresses. But when they are offered the opportunity to go to an exclusive part of this island, they soon find out that not all is as appeared when it comes to this beautiful getaway resort. So,
are we going to
old.
spoil it, or should we throw it out there? I would like to spoil it if
I feel like,
necessary.
yeah, we'll talk at first before we get to that twist. We have to talk about okay, so depending on your level of spoilers, if you haven't watched the trailer, probably click off if you're that sensitive.
Yeah.
Obviously, people get old on this beach. So
If you haven't read the title of the movie, surprise, they get
people
old.
age rapidly. Now, we'll talk about the twist near the end of the actual
Uh,
review so that if you want
yeah.
to escape that, you can wait.
I
But
also feel like
this
you
is
can't talk about M. Night
no.
Shyamalan movies without talking about the twists and
So, yeah.
why they're stupid a
We'll
lot
get
of the time, most of the
into
time.
that, but this is definitely an M. Night Shyamalan film. It does have a twist, as we said, and we'll talk about that soon. You can't have a film from him without one. After
Right.
Earth, though, actually is a film in which he doesn't really present a twist, and it is his most boring film. I'll say that. It's not,
Wait,
again, not
which one?
quite his worst, but clearly his most boring film
Which
to
one?
date. After Earth, with
I didn't watch that one.
Will and Jaden Smith starring in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Generic sci-fi to the max.
Great.
So yeah, when he doesn't have a twist, he's just flat out boring.
Yeah.
Old isn't boring, and I actually think to start off, it has a good idea. This is the M. Night Shyamalan recipe. Cool idea, a really
Concept.
inventive concept, and it actually leads to some interesting
Yeah.
ideas on the beach about humanity, about our own
Yeah.
mortality,
Family.
family, how we spend our
Um, yeah, I
time.
feel like M. Night Shyamalan and Ryan Murphy should start a club of the conceptual directors
Good
that don't know
ideas.
how to tell a story. Let me steal all the good ideas so nobody else can make them and just do them badly.
Because he's done that
That's
a lot. Everyone, that's, I think that's why, I'll just say this now before we get into the actual bigger discussion on him. I think that's why we continue to be fascinated with M. Night Shyamalan and why we keep wanting him to succeed and going to watch his films because he brings the idea that we're like, okay, maybe he can stick the landing again. And when you start so high and you nail it off the bat, you're just like constantly wanting them to get back to that.
Larry, you're using this pronoun we as if
Well,
anyone besides you still has faith that he is.
I
I
mean,
think people watch it because they're like, what's this train wreck going to look like?
I mean, maybe
I
that.
I had to specifically watch M. Night Shyamalan movies to prepare for this podcast because I stopped at The Village. That was the first movie I saw that I was angry when I left.
We'll definitely be talking about The Village, y'all. So stick around. There will be lots of ranting in this episode.
And because I was so angry at the last M. Night Shyamalan movie I had seen, it was like the fact that this one didn't make me angry made me come out and be like, it was fine. And then, of course, I thought about it for a little while longer. Like, I think I texted you like the next day and I was like, actually, this movie is hot garbage.
I'm going to say, I was shocked
at all of the plot holes in my brain as I go through.
I was shocked because we saw this. I saw it first at like a press thing, and then I saw it with Ren and my grandma and our friend Nicole on the Friday of release. I thought Ren was going to leave hating it, and she and Nicole both were kind of like, it was okay, and I was just like, oh, all right. They liked it a lot more than me.
So the other major saving grace of this film, and like part of the reason that I like agreed to do this topic is because I love Gael Garcia Bernal. Like I first saw him in The Science of Sleep way back when in like the early-ish 2000s and was like, who is this gorgeous, adorable, quirky little man? I love him. And so I've basically been following him all over in all of his Spanish language films too. For most of his career.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll watch him in this film. And he's adorable. He is adorable and sweet. The family at the center of Old is probably the most effective part of the movie. I think that's where for a short period of time, it starts to like play with something interesting, which is like you have these people who they're kind of falling apart as a family, and then they get put into this crisis. And I think there was something kind of interesting about like once they have to like watch their lives speeding by, they come back together. And there's something kind of interesting about watching what might have happened over the course of decades happen emotionally between these people on the beach. And if M. Night Shyamalan was a good director, that's what the movie would have been about. That's it. If he was a good writer, he was a good director, that would have been like the focus. I don't need any of those other fucking people on the beach. They're just like unnecessary, like horror elements, I guess.
Like that's what I don't think he understands is the horror in this story is the premise. It is aging rapidly on this beach. And you don't need to add outside horror elements. It's already a terrifying concept that is going to freak people out because a lot of people, when faced with like anything that has them question mortality, start thinking, and that'll freak you out enough. You don't need all that extra.
It was also like not that scary. Nothing was like scary enough to warrant the need for it. Like it would have been better if they had spent any time. So okay, so to give you the layout of the land, you have the central family, which is the Gael Garcia Bernal character, actress wife who I've never seen before. She was not bad.
Did you see? Oh God, now I'm blanking on it. The fashion movie. With Daniel Day-Lewis.
It was yes. She was in that one.
Why am I blanking it? Yeah, okay. She was the younger woman in that one.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, she's good. She's one of those actresses. She's one of those quiet dignity actresses. So I tend to like my actresses a little flashier than that, but she's fine. She's not bad. I think she does a good job. I think it was. I don't know. It's fine. The family is fine. The little kids are actually
over the top. Alex Wolff, who loves to cry. He is a crier. Son,
the kid
the teenage
from
son,
what was
Hereditary.
That movie? Hereditary.
Yeah,
that one with the mole.
With the mole.
I love how like he starts aging, but the one thing you have the whole time is that mole. His like,
and I'm pretty sure it's because
mole.
They hired Alex Wolff,
yeah,
and we're like, okay, everybody else has to have that distinct mole.
He has a very distinct feature on his face that is a giant mole, and then all the little kids and everybody had to have one.
And I think Thomasin McKenzie was probably my personal highlight of the acting cast. She was the daughter, the like mid-age daughter. I thought she was quite good. She was also a little bit quieter, but I thought she made some interesting choices, like that like choke thing that like when she started like freaking out. But yeah,
I thought it was interesting. I mean, child actors are always like a hard thing just because they're children and they just don't have the time to have developed skilled a lot of the time. Like occasionally you get a kid who just like seems to get it.
Yeah.
But they're children. So the bar has to be a little bit lower. I do think they did okay. It was, I wasn't super sold on these older people playing young children. Like, I think it felt very much like adults playing children as opposed to like children actually trapped inside of a body. Yeah. Like, sorry, my brain just went to, you know, who did an amazing job of one character trapped in a completely contrary body? Jack Black in the Jumanji movies. That's one of the best renditions I've ever seen of a, like, you could see
also,
that other girl inside
Alex
his
Wolff,
body.
With the mole.
Oh yes,
he's also in the Jumanji movie.
Like, it's all
so there you go. But
yeah,
then we have Lovecraft Country woman in here with her husband,
who is serving creepy hot girl realness again.
Yes, like she knows.
Came out and I was like, I think I like that actress. I don't know if I like her so much as I think I really dig her very particular brand of like scary doll face.
Yeah,
and the way that she like.
She's obviously hot, but in a very creepy way, weird way. Like, she's not conventional.
She's got that crazy bitch blank stare. That's what it is. It's like her eyes are so big.
It was a really weird, like a really weird shot that M. Night Shyamalan did, but he tried to like capitalize on her face where he like zoomed, like he had her so close into the camera with the girl back there. And like, this is when she started aging and she had like the bags and stuff. But it was just like, is he just like trying to like freak us out by her face alone? Having her face like right in the camera like that.
I don't know.
But then we have this rapper whose name is Midsize Sedan.
Who the fuck picked that name? Like, I understand. It just feels like he was making fun of rapper names instead of like coming up with an actual rapper
like an
name.
old person jab at rappers to me.
They ask him what his name is, and his response is Midsize Sedan. They do not call themselves their ridiculous name.
He reveals his name later, so he has a name that he remembers.
In a panic situation, I'm not handing out my stage name.
I mean, they just wanted to set up that stupid joke with Gael Garcia Bernal, being like, so what's his surname, Sedan? So yeah, but then, so we have crazy doctor who is married to Lovecraft Country. His mom is there, her dog is there, and then this couple come in late that we see just
inexplicably. All right, like, let me just say that right out. Like, they have one guy that's already on the beach. Midsize Sedan is already on the beach, and then they have the two families show up, and then they have another two show up late for apparently no reason. Like, why?
She had a seizure and needed to rest.
No, she needed to rest. No, I mean, like, in the context of the film, it didn't make
no sense.
There's a reason why they had to show up late. They already did the seizure earlier on in the film. Great, I understand this is her medical condition, and that gives me the stakes necessary to understand what their issue is there on the beach trapped.
It just makes there's a lot of things in here that just don't really make sense. With that wife that comes in late, it's another instance of M. Night Shyamalan trying to like make fun of another profession. He tries to make fun of like therapists, psychologists. Yeah. So he makes her this caricature.
Maybe we should all talk about this. No,
like he makes her this crazy person caricature. That's just
I am one of my dear friends, Shauna, is a actual therapist, psychiatrist, or psychologist. She's master's degree, everything. She is a theater person, so she is in a position where she regularly could be dissecting characters and people and their impulses and that. She actively chooses not to do that because that's a weird, creepy thing to do. And
it just gets on people's nerves when they're panicking for their lives.
And psychiatrists understand that that's not helpful because they're psychiatrists and they know how people think.
And he just has her spout weird nonsense. Like, I think we should talk about this. Like, in the it was so dumb. It was like really stupid. And he takes jabs at a couple different the professions here between rappers and but now that I'm saying
The
that,
doctor too, the doctor who is obsessed with who's mean and obsessed with his career, like crazy person. That seems to be the indication
but
he's obsessed with his status and
they
his
have
like
his character go down a weird path that
does
was
go
just
down a weird
not
path.
necessary.
The
But
insurance adjuster who goes around and all he does is analyze risk.
yeah, Gal
Again,
Garcia Bernal
for
is just like running
no
around
reason.
talking about risk percentage.
Irrelevant to the needs of the plot.
And then this little boy who has this weird obsession with what's your name and what's your profession, which is only used for a device to come back later in the film. Like it's
Correct.
only introduced so that they could loop it back. But I mean, I guess that one was the least offensive
That
because they
at least
established
was a device, Larry.
yeah.
And I can buy a
And that kid was
6-year-old
weird too.
who has a thing
he's a
that
little
they
quirky.
do with every person. It also like indicates he's a little outgoing, gives you a little bit of character to follow for this child.
Yeah.
That one I will give him a pass on because he at least had a reason for it later on in the film.
But these characters
none of the
are
characters make any
just
sense.
they could be interesting, I guess.
They could, but
he doesn't.
they launched. It's how I don't know how long the movie was. Like a 2-hour movie.
No, it's like literally an hour. It's just over an hour and a half. It's pretty
well.
short.
Okay,
actually.
there you go. I will give him a check in the plus column for not going on too long. I can appreciate that. It did feel a lot longer than it actually was, though. So that's maybe not a good plus.
I'm thinking. Well, here's the problem. Is M. Night Shyamalan is not, so he's a good idea person, but he's not a good script writer because this screenplay is a hot freaking mess, which most of his screenplays are not great, but this one is really bad. Like the dialogue is horrible. These actors,
they are trying.
They do the best they can, but the dialogue they're given is so bad that it never feels natural. It never feels any sort of resemblance of what you would say in the scenario in an actual conversation, just living your life.
None of the dialogue or the way, like, so let me get a little nerdy here for a second. But as an actor, one of the things that you could learn of the schools of thought is everything that you need to learn about your characters should be there in the script. You should be able to get all the clues that you need about your character there in the script. This script doesn't give them any information about what they're really like as people. There are also lots of contradictory things that don't make a lot of sense. So I give them props. I mean, first of all, I'm sure they got paid very, very well. Good for them. They're in a very big film. They got made lots of decent money. Good for them. But I can imagine struggling with a script like that doesn't give you any actual information about what you're even who this person actually is. So they're just having to kind of make it up and kind of make it fit into this human that doesn't really make any sense at all.
And that was my problem is I think the actors did okay, but it's because I'm grading them on a curve. Because it was so wooden and stilted, which is partially the dialogue's fault. And then I just don't think M. Night Shyamalan is great at directing actors either. Like we'll get into Split later, but James McAvoy is just a talent that was able to he also got a more interesting character that he could really dive into, but he was able to just go crazy with that and deliver this performance. This type of characters are not that. And
there's too many of them. I think you could probably do away with several characters on the beach. And so the problem is then like, basically it seems like all of these other characters are there to just like keep the stress levels up and provide potential horror elements later on, but none of the horror elements are even that good. So it just ends up like you don't know anything about these characters, so you don't care about them. The only people you even care about a little bit are the central family, but it takes a really long time to care about them, and you still really don't know very much about them. Like, so it's like M. Night Shyamalan was that kid who was like, "What's your name and occupation?" Like, that's all we know about most of these people on the beach is their name and their occupation, right? I remember. I couldn't tell you anything else about Gael Garcia Bernal's character other than
an insurance broker.
He's an insurance adjuster,
and his name was Guy.
Yes, and the wife she worked in a museum. They brought that up several times.
She was like an archaeologist, not an archaeologist, but she studied bones and worked in a museum.
Just very conveniently, because then they find bones and they're decaying very fast. it also takes them way too fucking long to understand what's going on. Like, I understand it's a very strange thing and it's like doesn't really register as a thing that's actually happening, but it is a movie. And I cannot deal with the fact that you literally spent way too many things happen before they figured out. There was like 3 dead bodies before they figured out what was happening.
And they try to, I don't know, the characters just act so ridiculous. Like right off the bat, they just start acting ridiculous. And you're just like, what the hell?
Every single character is a caricature more than an actually fully formed, especially the second family, the doctor and his
yes, the wife,
his trophy wife, which is that whole family is so weird, and I don't understand anything about any of that. Like they did this weird allusion to what their dynamic might be without giving you any answers at all about what their dynamic actually
and she's
is.
Such a character, like the moment we meet her, that it's immediately like you're like, oh, okay, you know, like we know this character because she's a big stereotype, and it's apparent immediately when we meet her before we even get to the beach. And it's just, I don't know, it was a little bit off-putting, that first scene with her.
Yeah.
And she's actually, and then they tried to, I don't know, her character is very strange. Again, like most of them, it's very strange. The doctor and his medical ailment, I thought was unneeded and completely ridiculous. I thought it was so poorly handled. And the way also, it's characterized, M. Night Shyamalan also needs to stay away from mental illness. I think
absolutely. I was thinking about that.
He doesn't do it right. He doesn't do the research, and he mischaracterizes these disorders severely.
You absolutely should not be like. That's a terrible way to depict. We're just going to tell you a paranoid schizophrenic. Like that is horrible. People who are schizophrenic don't act like they don't have a problem and act like dicks to everyone and hide everything. And they also don't okay, I'm a big true crime nerd, right? So I'm literally listening to these episodes of another podcast, Last Podcast on the Left. I'm sure you've all heard of it. If you're listening to podcasts, they're kind of big, but it's like an old episode, and they literally are talking about this serial killer who was a schizophrenic and heard voices and was violent. And they made sure to be very clear that this is an atypical way for schizophrenics to act. They do not become homicidal. They sometimes hear those voices and they fight against them. Also, the medications are so good anymore that it's not as big of an issue. And then I go, well, whatever. We're waiting until the end to talk about all the spoilers and stuff. But it's like offensive.
It was. And then the other disorders are also really dodgy. Like my mom is an epileptic who has grand mal seizures. That was dodgy at best, the depiction of those seizures. And then, when we get there, the calcium deficiency thing was very ridiculous. Like that was that was just what are we doing?
Used to build a human monster thing, I guess.
It was,
I don't freaking know.
And it unneeded. And then
also, their science behind it was like, it didn't make any sense. It's like, how come our hair and our nails aren't growing? Well, they're dead cells. That's also not like scientifically accurate. That is not really this. It's a different type of cell.
So they had a joke in here, but the joke was a little bit too self-referential. So there's a joke, and it did make me laugh, where mid-sized sedan turns to the only other Black woman on this beach. And it's like, oh, now that we're aging rapidly, is the only time in their lives they're going to wish they were Black. Which I thought was just a funny joke. I thought it was good.
That was a solid joke.
But this mid-sized sedan, we've already established, he was already on the beach. So he had been on this beach a good at least 12 hours prior to anybody else arriving on the beach. And he did not change, because we see him at the beginning of this film before everybody else arrives. And then we see him the next day, aged 0. And all throughout his time in this film, he doesn't age even in the slightest. No like white on the temples, nothing. Gael Garcia Bernal aged very little, to the point where we get to, kind of the natural arc of his character, and he pretty much looks the same. Same thing with his wife. She aged very little. So the aging process was very strange to me. Some people age rapidly. The doctor already started pretty old.
Yeah.
And should have been damn near decrepit. Like, I don't know what's going on. So the aging also was all over the place, wonky and ridiculous. There was no rhyme or reason. And that's what really gets me in films is set up your rules and then play by your rules. I don't care what your rules
Your
are.
rules. Yeah. Yeah.
You set up whatever rules you want. This is fantasy, this is make believe, but you have to establish those rules and then you have to stay within them for your world. And we don't do that here. There's no rule. They establish rules and try to tell you, and then they just throw that out the window.
Yeah. Which is absolutely M. Night Shyamalan's like MO is like he invents rules just like as appropriate for the moment in the joke that he needs, and then he throws it away when it is like inconvenient for tying up the loose ends of his shitty story. I feel like with M. Night Shyamalan, it's like that case. It's like George Lucas syndrome, where like he doesn't. Nobody. He has so much money and so much clout that when he sits and makes a movie, nobody tells him this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. It's like he writes the first draft of his film and is like, masterpiece, I'm done. And nobody looks at it. Nobody gives him any feedback. He doesn't workshop it in any way, shape, or form. He is so utterly convinced of his genius that he has no way of like sitting down and evaluating whether or not the shit makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it is to his grand deficit that he did well with his first two films. After that, I was like, and then like a hard slide downwards. So
let's give you the spoiler warning. We're going to give you the spoiler warning now. We're going to get into all the spoilers, including the twist. So click away if you have not watched and care about spoilers. If you don't care about spoilers and haven't watched, stick around. So you've now been warned. Let's talk about first the horror aspects, because they are a big problem for me in this film too. Is everything that tries to come off as horror just comes across goofy, like it's unintentionally funny rather than any sort of scary. We talked about that body horror before with that wife. It was ridiculous, and it didn't even look very good. The CGI
it didn't look very good. It wasn't very scary, and it also made no sense. Her bones broke, and they automatically fused in the wrong position. I'm sorry. So then the girl who fell off the cliff, presumably all of her shit should have healed almost immediately, because apparently that's how the cells work in this realm. What?
And then, like, by the time she's done, she's literally a tangled mess, which you're just like, how did this even happen? Like, you know, like
she just starts flailing around.
Like, does she just start doing this? So
breaking her own bones because it's that easy, just to smack your arm against. Like,
she has a calcium deficiency.
I'm not Shyamalan. She's not Mr. Glass. That's not how this works. That is a disease that happens to people sometimes. But that is not the disease you gave her.
And then they don't. I mean, I guess they try to save themselves later when they talk about how their blood patient was ruined, their study. But his nose is just like running for all this time out on this beach with mid-sized sedan, and it's just like, what is going on?
So this was a deep problem that I had with the movie. Is like, okay, so at the end you find out that it's just a whole medical study, that it's a fast-tracked medical study that's non-consensual. First of all, that is not how medicine works at all. No doctor, certainly no horde of human beings would do harm. And when they're
a bunch of crazy people, doctors, a bunch of crazy people.
With the idea that they're doing this for the greater good. Like, obviously we are all like, yes, obviously it's to sell medicines, but they are like framing it as it's for the greater good.
Yes.
And they don't tell you this until the very, very end of the film. So you don't spend any time dealing with the possibly interesting consequences or thought processes of this greater good idea. They also don't like give you any clues at all. Like, I hate when movies just give you the ending without giving you any information at all. Like, I don't I don't care now. This is unrelated. This is literally unrelated. You basically just answered the question about exposition from the beginning of the film now, and it's not really a twist. It wasn't a twist. It was an explanation of his film at the last possible minute.
Like the clues were that somebody's watching them. That was the clue that you were supposed to get, which is nothing.
And the assumption was clearly they're watching them to see what happens. I don't need to, great. That's not a twist, Shyamalan. That's not new information.
M. Night Shyamalan, you are not an actor.
He's not allowed to be in his films. Oh my God.
You can have one cameo. You can have maybe one little cameo and that's it.
No, Shyamalan. You know why he does that, Larry? This vain motherfucker thinks he's an auteur fucking filmmaker like Alfred fucking Hitchcock and puts himself in a cameo in all of his films because he's an auteur and it's his thing. Fuck you, you stupid asshole. Get out of your own films because I don't want to see your stupid face. Why?
It takes you out. Like it takes you out of any sort of moment you're in anyway. Like as soon as he throws himself in there, I'm like, fine, you can be the stupid bus driver, whatever.
He was also in it for way too long.
But this
time,
is not
right?
a cameo. This was like he gave himself a supporting role in the film.
Yes.
And that's not okay. He's not good. And it does not need to be a supporting member in any film, including your own, Shyamalan. So
also his character doesn't make any sense either. Okay, so he's the van driver and he's the dude that sits and observes all the time. Like, this is not how jobs work. This is not how research works. This is just... So the twist doesn't make any sense and is stupid and makes a little bit of sense, but is not like interesting or like shocking in any way.
And then what happens after the twist also is not interesting. Like, it's not an interesting follow-up to the big reveal. Like after that, I don't know, you just have these two 50-year-olds bumping into this woman who is apparently, she's in on the whole thing and has some role, but she also is like waitress who brings them out their medicine beverages that they need. So then I was so confused because after she gets bumped by the 6-year-old, now 50-year-old who escapes the island, she sits there in her chair, just like staring wide-eyed. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with this woman? Like, is she also an experiment and just got exposed? Like, what?
I guess she felt guilty,
did we have this
or maybe she's just afraid now. Maybe he just wanted to show her fear that she was about to get like... Okay, sorry, going back to why this is not how any of this works. So they make a point. They do say this thing at the last minute, which is, I don't think that we should be mixing our our mental health patients and our physical health patients. It's costing us data because the one character with his schizophrenic paranoia ends up murdering another character and then trying to kill another one. If they are actually scientists, they are not leaving things that can destroy their data just there to do it. I don't think we're going to change the protocols, but you can submit an memo. Shut up, you stupid asshole. Shyamalan, do some fucking research, please. Like, here's the thing. I don't need my filmmakers to stick like hardcore to reality in every single topic that they decide to delve into. I do need to know them to know at like a base level. I am not a scientist. I know at a base level, they don't let just willy-nilly the problems with their controls just fuck around. What? That's terrible. They're trying to figure out how these diseases affect these people long term, and they're literally letting an entire human lab rat die because it's better to leave the mental health patients on a beach together and not interfere at all, I guess. Also, I don't understand why they can't interfere at all. Why can't they? They've already decided they don't give a shit about these people's humanity. At the very least, like, do they care about their data? Apparently not that either.
And it's also not clear. So it's then implied that obviously they give the epileptic patient medicine because they reference back that she lasted a long time. But again, It's not. It's. I then went to the assumption that that drink they're given is their medication for their infliction, but she has a seizure after she arrives, so it doesn't work immediately, that beverage, or did they give her epilepsy medicine after she has this seizure? It doesn't make sense.
Great question.
Uh,
Also, the woman who is sick in the family has a
yes.
tumor and it's benign. They say it regularly. It's benign. It's benign. It's not a problem. And it's just apparently going to get taken out. So first of all, she shouldn't be a fucking candidate. And then all of a sudden, this tumor that they've said is benign is now growing. And now it's the size of a cantaloupe. It's gone so fast. It's killing her. Now we have to do it.
Yeah, so they actually they triggered this benign tumor into being cancerous tumor. Like,
Right? They're trying to solve a medical problem that
doesn't
solved.
exist. That does not need to be solved.
They have this other woman who has her calcium deficiency, right? We went over this, which they don't really cover. All they do is like they have like a moment where she tells her daughter to sit up straight. And I think she says like one thing about calcium and not like you don't want to be a hunchback.
Oh
and then all of a sudden, as time goes on, she's a fucking hunchback.
I hated that callback so much. Like out of all the callbacks that happened in this film, her telling her daughter to sit up straight and then her becoming a hunchback was the most annoying thing ever.
She also like, okay, there's none of these characters are developed at all, but her shitty husband says like so I gotta go even further back about how this doesn't make any sense. So they all get into a circle at some point and they're like, okay, we're all sick. Everybody's sick. Let's all talk about, let's like pinpoint what's going on. We're all sick. And the doctor and the wife, she says, we've been having a hard time, the two of us. Well, don't say anything. So it's clearly implied that it's like relationship problems and that's why they're on a vacation. Why they refuse to tell anyone he's a paranoid schizophrenic, and maybe that's something we should address, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any freaking sense.
The movie legit just makes it seem like relationship, because even the mom early on is like, oh, I know you've been having a hard time, and it makes it seem like the wife is just coming to the mom with like relationship, or like, oh, our marriage is he seems jealous, like they kind of instill that weird jealousy, but that just seems like relationship problems, and then it devolves into paranoid schizophrenia.
We were hiding his paranoid schizophrenia the whole time. Why were you doing that?
Everybody else has literally gone around this impromptu therapy circle to reveal their diseases, and then there's you who
also,
refuse.
Sorry, going back a little bit further into the why of this whole situation. Why do they need the children on the beach too? If this is a medical experiment thing, okay, I understand. And they're giving away sweepstakes tickets specifically and targeting these people with diseases. They can give them 2 tickets. They can give them a ticket just for themselves and one other person they're okay killing. Why do they need to bring the children? They like clearly know that the children are going to be a thing because they bring a whole bunch of extra food for the children as their mass is increasing or whatever. Also, I don't know if I believe that a couple of 6-year-olds will figure out sex on their own within a few hours.
I hated that so much. And I also hated the explanation of like your mind growing, of being colors. Like all of them were just, I have so many more colors in my head. Oh God, I hated it.
That was a dumb ass, like
I hated it.
They would have sped so fast through all of that. Like the maximum that I got, like here's what I did enjoy, but this again, it's like he doesn't know what he wants the tone of his fucking film to be. So she's pregnant. They realize he's pregnant, and the kid starts freaking out, being like, "I'm gonna marry her." And like I understand that. Like that to me makes sense. Is the like extreme emotions. Extreme mood swings make sense to me from a like I am suddenly experiencing
sex
all of puberty once.
Was very weird.
I also he says what you did is how you make a baby. Oh yeah, I knew that. I just thought you had to do it like 10 times. Why does your 6-year-old know how to make a baby?
And then he follows that up though and is like, oh yeah, we never really got to talk about this. So if you never got to talk about this, how the hell does he know this? Like it just is so ridiculous.
He doesn't.
The script makes zero sense. Like the script is literal nonsense. It's garbage. Like the screenplay for this film is absolutely terrible. And
Horrible.
it just does make it so much more frustrating because there is that one scene at the end of the second act where the family, after we finally have gotten rid of all of the filler characters and it's just the family, and they have this moment by the campfire, our actors get to like actually show more range and really connect
Yeah.
with each other. It
Yeah.
suddenly is like, wow, this is like,
That's the most
okay, this is
effective. The
the
family.
best
Yes.
scene of the whole film.
Hmm.
Why couldn't we just have this? It just shows you if we had just focused on the family, it would have
Yeah.
been so much more
I also felt like
interesting.
there was so many missed opportunities. Like my thought was, you know, she's got this tumor. If this tumor was actually malignant and she thought she was going to die, then there is actually something interesting to think about in terms of like maybe she wished she could have watched her children grow old and now it's happening and oh my gosh, it's actually a nightmare. I didn't mean for this
Yeah.
to happen. That would have been a really interesting take, a really interesting, and I thought that was the direction. Silly me, I thought for a second that he knew anything about how to tell a story.
It makes you wish
Got
that
whose film I was watching.
one, it makes you wish maybe a smaller studio like an A24 or something
Yeah.
had gotten a hold of this idea, because they would have dared to go there, because I
Yeah.
feel like you have this pressure in the bigger studios where it has to be some sort of mainstream horror, so you add in all these extra characters because hey, it's a horror film, we have to have fodder to kill, like there has to be expendable people all around us to kill that nobody really cares about. And then that a more capable director writer could have come up and stripped away the nonsense and got to the core of what was here, which was really interesting
Yeah.
and could have been this great
I'm
film.
now like really curious because I saw in the credits that it's based on a graphic novel. I'm actually really curious
Yeah.
to read the graphic novel because then maybe the story is, I imagine that story must be decent if it was like big enough that someone saw it and then was like, this
And
would make a
part of
good
you
movie.
wonders if maybe, well, not with his script. That's the thing. Is I'm like, if it was a different person adapting,
Maybe, but not with M. Night
well,
Shyamalan.
because I was like, maybe it needed to be closer to 2 hours, because if you're adapting that material, maybe there
No,
was more in there
no,
that you just could have had
no.
something. But Shyamalan's script
He
was
didn't
so
have
bad that I don't want 2 hours of it.
it is
Like,
it is literally like he sits down at a typewriter and just types out the whole thing. I bet he hands it to someone with typos and all and is like, this is my script. It's done. I don't think he plots anything out. I don't think he even like, if you, I have written some very complicated scripts before and I like if there's like characters that are related to this character, I do like a whole map. I try and
yeah.
figure out like what my frame is, how things are going to be organized. I don't think he does any of that shit. I think he just sits down and starts writing and then it's like done and he's like, that's great, I finished the script and now I'm going to go make a bunch of money off of it because I did 2 good films and now people are just watching my film to see how crappy the next one's going to be.
I will say, if this film has one thing going for it, it definitely kind of falls into that so bad that you can have fun.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes,
You can.
I would agree with that.
It falls into that category.
Pretty
Like,
close,
yes,
yeah.
it's pretty bad. It's not good at all.
It also,
but
yeah,
it is so unintentionally funny and ridiculous that
also has
there is
funny-
fun to be had there.
Yes. It's also like funny in places it shouldn't be funny when it's intentioned to be funny. So it's like, that's funny. That's just like, yeah.
Like when mid-sized sedan, listen, when so this dead woman washes up on the shore.
He just says,
this mid-sized
damn.
sedan comes from the other side of the beach, walks over to look at the dead body. Damn. Like the most
the first like 3
it's
things he
so
says, damn,
ridiculous and outrageous that it's like you can't help but laugh. Like it's like what? Okay, sir, that's the woman you were with last night. Damn. But
he's not even a little bit
not shook at all. He's not even shaking. His nose has been running all night, and he's just like, I don't know why it's been
doing that for a while. What?
It's like, I mean, okay, mid-size, we're gonna need you to take a seat. But it just is so ridiculous and ludicrous that, I mean, if you go in and laugh, I think
the ending, the ending is a straight like Deus Ex Machina. Like it is full on like, oh, he left me a secret note. Everybody's dead, but I just remembered the secret note that tells me the answer to the problem that would have saved everyone's lives.
The only thing I liked about that, so I thought it was going to be more direct. I was at least glad that maybe there was a chance that 6-year-old kid wouldn't get it, would just be like, okay, and like throw it away or something. That was the only thing with that damn note, because when they were like, oh, there's a note, I thought it was legit going to be like, go through the coral, swim to the coral and escape. At least it was like, my uncle doesn't like coral. So maybe the kid would have been like, oh, okay, and like throwing it or something, because it's kind of vague.
But also, they're all like, let's swim all the way around. Nobody sees the coral the whole movie.
They even mention it. Somebody's like, oh, look at the coral.
They're trying.
Also, that coral looks
into teams to go search for ways to leave, and nobody looks at the coral.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to that husband, man, that Asian husband. He was terrible. Like, so we can give the other people some credit. He was so bad in his line delivery. Also, M. Night Shyamalan, I appreciated some of the visual stuff he tried to do. He tried to create like this kind of frenetic, disorienting camera work, which was whatever. And I liked the surround sound thing he did.
Sure.
I hated, though, the sound mix. The way that he cut in the voices that were clearly dubbed and clearly just this weird in a studio was horrible. It was like amateur level sound mix that I could not believe my ears was happening. And the main one was that Asian man sitting there, oh, I can go swim around this thing. Like, I don't even know what I don't know what his character was doing. And I thought he was terrible. And the actor, I'm sorry, sir, but
also,
no.
What the hell? He's like, does anybody here think they can swim around? They throw that idea away, and then like a couple hours later, he's like, "I'm gonna swim around. I was on the swim team. I'm gonna be fine." Why were you asking everyone else then, man? Why didn't you volunteer the first time you fucking said it? Also, he proposes this thing way early on of let's try and get out slowly. Who wants to give up 20 years of our lives? And we just disregard that as a possibility altogether, even though they've all now realized they're stuck there no matter what.
I think I would
absolutely have given up a theoretical 20 years of my life to just make sure I lived through the day.
Especially like him. Instead of swimming around trying to like swim into this current, why don't you try your other idea? That's slowly walk. Just start slowly walking and see if it works.
That rather than doesn't run the risk of you passing out while you're swimming and drowning. Also, where the pool noodles come from? All of a sudden, she's like lashing them together like it's a raft. Like she's figured it out. And then she brings up this sister that hasn't been referred to at all.
Who's like also a psychologist.
It's so much nonsense. This is a terrible film. It is a terrible, awful film.
I didn't like it coming out, but it's gotten worse and worse. It got like worse and worse and worse for me since I've watched it.
Yes. The more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, and why was that? And that didn't make any sense either. And why?
No, the whole thing just makes no sense. And
so to anybody listening to me screeching about this film right now, because it's so very upsetting.
Let's talk about some other upsetting films also directed by the man known as M. Night Shyamalan.
So really quick, while I had to sit and think about this, right? So I stopped watching at the Village. I saw the Village in theaters, and it was one of the few experiences where I was like angry when I left because it was so bad, and I like felt like I had been robbed of my time.
Yes.
I was upset about the Village from the very beginning. And I was thinking about like, why is The Sixth Sense? I love The Sixth Sense is incredible. Unbreakable is incredible. Those are two bands. Those are some Unbreakable is possibly one. It's one of my favorite movies, just period. I really, really like that film. But then by Signs, it gets weird and it's like, oh, okay. And then The Village came out right after that and it was horrible. And here's what I figured out. This is my thought.
Okay.
In the first two films, he actually gives a shit about the characters and developing the characters themselves. You actually care about Bruce Willis in both of those films, and you follow his arc. You understand what he's struggling with. You have something to follow. You have an entire person to care about. And after those films, he completely forgot how to make his characters live at the center of his stories. He got so wrapped up in making a story happen that he forgot about the part that actually makes people give a shit about his movies. And I think
those Oscar nominations with The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of it would have been a lot of his movies. Listen, the plots are pretty terrible, but even like this is why Signs still kind of sits on that edge, because at least Mel Gibson's character in Signs has some development. You understand his past, you know a little bit more about who he is as a person, and so you're a little bit more invested in it, except for the fact that like also who he is as a person is like completely irrelevant to the plot then as we go along.
And that's one of the twists that definitely kind of brings the film down a little bit for me. It's also this weird religious thing in Signs that is kind of like, okay, well, and that's, I think the religious thing is even worse. Well, no, the aliens being allergic to water is ridiculous.
Crazy. That is
absolute buffoonery. Like
fucking. So this superior race that can intergalactically travel decided to invade a planet that was 80%
water. It just, I mean, that twist is so dumb. But everything before there with the actual signs, all of that mystery works really well. So at least everything up until that just being complete nonsense is investing.
So so I think my problem with The Village from the very beginning was that like it was very clear from the beginning that it was just like a disjointed mess. Like I saw the twist coming from a mile away because I was like, what is the time period? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't know what their outfit is. I don't know what this music is. What the hell are they even talking about? What place is this? This is not, the setting has not been established at all. And that was the whole thing, was that it was like, oh, it's
an amusement park.
It's not the past. I will say, having come up in the Philadelphia theater community, it is always nice to kind of like have that little bit of a Philadelphia vibe from him. But also, it's a little embarrassing every time. Also, I just needed to point out that in Old, going back, they say the address of where they live. It's like 909 Pine Street or like 707 Pine Street. Larry, that's not, I mean, that's a place where the millionaires live. That is not an area where like a family living in Philadelphia lives. And there. He's filmed there. It's like he opened a Google map and was like, Pine Street, 9th and Pine. There we go.
Oh my God. But no, and then The Village is also kind of offensive because like the beast that they've been scared of this whole time is like a disabled person.
Okay, all right. I will tell. So I'll tell you. Because I went to college in Philadelphia. One of my media teachers had worked on M. Night Shyamalan films. She was Pakistani, and she told me that M. Night Shyamalan is one of the most horrifically racist people she has ever encountered on a film set. So one of the things I know. One of the things she said that I always remember is that he was like, I really want some Chinese people with the Chinese hat. You know what I'm talking about? With the Chinese hat for The Village. And this is horrifying. So
he just is so like anybody with any sort of disability, he's just so offensive toward.
Can we cancel M. Night Shyamalan already, please? Can we cancel him because he is an insensitive piece of shit? No, we can't because he's a person of color, I guess.
No, we can't.
And he's one of the only people of color who like has made a successful commercially
he rode the waves
career
of that damn Sixth Sense, particularly for such a long time. Like he's made a whole career based on the Sixth Sense alone. Yeah. Like Unbreakable wasn't a big enough hit, like financially, to really be like that too, but artistically, yes. So artistically, he started so strong That
That's what you need to know, Larry, is all you need to do is bust out the gate with one kick-ass film that you spent a lot of time and thought on, and then you don't have to try anymore. You can just do whatever the fuck you want
then
because you can
even
just
after
post on
that,
it. Sorry,
God.
only if you're a man. If you're a woman and you bust out the gate
No,
with a
then-
kick-ass film, it doesn't matter.
Maybe we'll see you in a
No, no.
decade. Yeah.
Like the lady who
God.
directed Boys Don't Cry and then didn't work for 9 years. Yeah.
well,
Anyways,
there you
M. Night
But
Shyamalan's been making
M.
a
Night-
film every year for the last
go.
2
God.
decades.
But then after frickin' The Village, he just continued on. We had The Happening, which is a ridiculous twist again with Mark Wahlberg. And then we have The Lady in the Water, which is one of his worst films. If not, I mean, it's right up there with
Notoriously
the
bad.
worst of his worst. And another very strange twist. Paul Giamatti. I actually just said this because I just watched Jungle Cruise and talked about it because Paul Giamatti is in that film. When Paul Giamatti is on, he's really good. When he is off, he's almost unbearable to watch. Like, he is so bad when he misses in a film. And he's not quite that bad in The Lady in the Water. Oh God, and then M. Night Shyamalan has a very, like, too prominent of a role in Lady in the Water. It's just terrible. So then what does he do? He goes to adapting and tries to adapt Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay, I watched that one. Like, I tell you, the very first thing I thought, like the very first scene, I was like, why are the Inuits white people? Why on earth would he make that decision? Avatar: The Last Airbender absolutely should have no white people in it, period. Like, there's just no reason for it. It actually logically doesn't make any sense for there to be white people in that film. Like, the areas that they visit are
no.
Also, it's an Asian television show, Asian cartoon that's being adapted. Why on earth would you do this?
He just took all of the lore, like any of the lore, all of what people loved about the property, and threw it into the trash and just had them like kind of pushing each other.
Also, the goddamn narcissistic gall to set that up as if he was sure he was going to get a second film. After that,
everybody was so like, that's the one that makes the most people the most angry, just because Avatar has such a huge, like, crazy fan base.
Yeah.
And they're like, this trash.
I haven't
never been
watched
made.
a lot of the episodes. I've probably seen maybe like 6 from the first season. But even that was clearly better than this shit. So this was like, so Avatar: The Last Airbender, while I was watching it, it was like, it's like one of those kids films that's just like kind of a garbage film, and it's like a kids film. And so you can understand why, like, it's fine for children. Like, they don't need a lot in their films. So it doesn't really matter that it doesn't make a lot of sense and the acting isn't very good and it's kind of crappy special effects. Children are fine with it. But it's a fucking M. Night Shyamalan film. Like, you can pay a B grade director and put like next to no money into that level of children's movie quality and probably still get a better result.
Yeah, still getting good budgets, because after this is when his budget started to decrease, because this bombed so hard, and the fan base wasn't that. Again, you have to know who you're making the movie for, and you're making the movie for the show's fans. They're old enough to watch this and be like, what the hell?
That's how you know that's how you know it's trash. The fact that, like, it had a built-in bass and the built-in bass just rejected it flat out. We're like, absolutely not. Fuck you and the shitty typewriter you wrote in on.
But
he
then,
is
oh my God,
a monster.
Then after that, he wrote The Devil, which is terrible. He didn't direct it, but he wrote that damn screenplay, which is terrible. And then we get to After Earth, which I mentioned before. And I think this was the last, like, big budget movie he had. It starred Will Smith and his son. And it was like this vanity project for Will Smith's son to kick off his career. And it's just a sci-fi. And I can't even remember much else to tell you about it because it's just so boring. It's just Will Smith and his son running around on this planet.
They went into the concept room in there. So it's Will Smith and his son.
Period.
That was the pitch.
That was the whole pitch. It didn't work. It did not launch Will Smith's son's acting career at all. But then people stopped giving him money, and he had to go back to a low budget, and he got The Visit. So his budget was scaled way down again.
The Visit
stripped down.
Was not okay. The Visit was not terrible, but it wasn't good. It was like another like. It was like not. It was like supposed to be scary, but wasn't actually scary. And the thing that I liked the best about it was one, Catherine Hahn, and two, all of the Philadelphia references. Like other than that, I like watching them drive in actual South Philly. I was like, oh, that's cool. I know that's it.
Yeah, his budget got scaled back.
I've been there. Yeah.
He was like, okay, let's go shoot in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and like, The Visit doesn't make any sense.
The Visit, Larry, The Visit at least is so kitschy. Like,
you spend the whole movie making it seem like they're aliens or monsters from another planet, and they're just homicidal maniacs.
They're just
why
crazy,
is he shitting in his diapers?
Listen, but that shit, okay, I mean, it's disgusting, but I hollered. Like, that was like... When he did that to that little boy, one, I couldn't quite believe my eyes, but I hollered.
My favorite was when he like the kid like loses, like literally loses his shit and was like just screaming. Yeah.
See, to me, The Visit is one of his more successful films because he really leans into the ridiculous. Like that is the one film where he really like has a little bit more fun in his filmmaking. He lets these old people just run around, act crazy. Like that grandma, I mean, she kills it in that movie. I think she is just acting so crazy. Like with that damn oven.
He like does... it seems like he doesn't know what kind of a movie he wants to make. He doesn't know if he wants it to be a horror or he wants it to be a comedy.
Like a dark comedy.
I think I think he wants to write horror comedy. He just is bad at it. Like he doesn't know when the comedy should happen and when the horror should. He doesn't understand that the comedy horror thing is about like building the tension and when to snap it at just the right point with a joke. He doesn't understand.
He's watched Sam Raimi. He just doesn't know how to execute Sam Raimi.
Yeah, he's watched all of the oh my God, what's his name? No. I was saying all of like Shaun of the Dead.
The
Cornetto trilogy.
He
watched everything in the Cornetto trilogy, and he's like, I can do that. No, you cannot.
No. But then we decide to start making sequels. So then he jumps back into the sequel game. Well, really his only sequel game. And he makes Split and follows that up to a trilogy for Glass. So Split is not really a sequel to Unbreakable. Let's just be clear.
It's a companion piece.
They introduce it very slightly, and then Glass is very clearly meant to tie the two together. So depiction aside, I enjoy Split for the most part. I will fully acknowledge that is a terrible representation of the disorder he gave James McAvoy's character. But damn, does James McAvoy sell the hell out of it.
James McAvoy gets to sit and just act his pants off. That is fun to watch. It's just It is always good to watch a good actor work and do good work.
Yeah,
but the plot is stupid, and I don't care. Like it's so minimal. He kidnapped this girl and he's gonna kill her, but he's got a split personality, and so some of the personalities want to kill her and some don't, and there's this weird religious attachment to one of the alter egos that is the beast, and like that's it. He doesn't it's so disappointing to see all of the missed opportunities that if he had anybody else that he handed his script to before he turned it in to the studio could say, I really like this thing that you're doing here with the religious aspects and how that kind of creates this cult mentality. Maybe you explore that a little bit more in this film and kind of focus on that instead of trying to be scary, because this isn't really that scary.
Then you finally watched The Glass.
I finally watched Glass, but like I said, I really liked Unbreakable. I liked it a lot. Split was decent. Glass was fine. I think I'm tired of Sarah Paulson. I think she just like does the same thing all the fucking time, and I don't.
How dare you, man?
I know.
It's just such an American Horror Story.
Show me one fucking thing that she has done that is different. It is always wide-eyed, serious face.
Stop, Red.
Please.
My heart. We love Sarah Paulson here.
She's fine. This is the same
We
thing
love
all
her.
the time. I don't care anymore. Do something new. Do something interesting. I just don't ever feel like, okay, so that's whatever, fine. I can't, again, missed opportunities. There's interesting things happening with this gaslighting aspect of Glass. They're literally gaslighting these superheroes. I know that some people said that they didn't like that spoiler alert. They didn't like that the ending of Glass was that superheroes are real. Like they thought that was like a weird cop out. I'm okay with that. I like the tone. I like the concept, and I don't think he did a terrible job of executing the concept of what if superheroes are real, and what if superheroes started to exist in real life again,
and in a more realistic manner. Like these aren't Superman, they're superheroes in like super people who are just a step or two above your average human.
I think Bruce Willis is. I see he always is the same thing, and I don't care. That's fun to watch.
No, Bruce Willis is not always fun to watch.
Here's the thing. Bruce Willis has got a lot more charm than Sarah Paulson does. It's not her fault. She never plays a character that is charming, but he does. So maybe if they would start shifting her one character into charming a little bit, it would be more fun to watch her.
But Samuel Jackson gets to play into this character, which I enjoy because it is a little bit different than his usual character. Yes. Samuel Jackson often plays the same, but he's just so damn charismatic.
This is what so we could talk about that. We should totally do a Tim Burton thing at some point. The hot mess of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. But like his Mr. Glass is like what that character should have been in the Peculiar Children. So that also just kind of makes me sad that it was just like a total, again, missed opportunities.
Tim Burton finally has a black person in his film, and it's a complete missed opportunity.
And it's the worst way to do the character.
But
all the way around.
He was really good. I'm glad he showed up. I don't really think Samuel L. Jackson really phones it in like other actors. I mean, he's in 1,000,001 films, but he's always fun. No matter what film you put him in, Samuel Jackson is having fun getting that paycheck. Unlike a lot of these other older actors who do 1,000,000 films who you could clearly see are like, okay, well, let's go. No, he has fun, and I think he does a great job here. I love Anya Taylor-Joy too. I just wish, I guess I don't wish she was in it more, her character, and all of their outside characters are almost useless, like Glass's mom and her, and who's the other one that's out there?
The son. The son. Yeah.
And it's kind of like,
I do like that the real actor, the little kid actor came back for Glass. I
believe the mom too, right? I think it's Samuel Jackson. The same mom is back again, which is fun.
They did the flashbacks and stuff. I think that trilogy is one of his more effective pieces of film. It seems like he didn't try so hard to give everything a twist, which is nice.
In each one, the twists are minor. Like Unbreakable, the twist is very minor. Like I guess it's building up to it, but they do so much to lead you to that you're okay. Same thing with Split. The twist is that the beast is real when they're making it seem like maybe not. So it's not really a twist because we've been talking about it the whole time. Yeah. And then in Glass, the twist is superheroes do exist after we've been gaslighted.
Well, it's also the big twist is also that Glass is the evil villain the whole time. Well,
but we already
we may have suspected already, but and then they brought that back again in Glass and are like, and also he killed the beast's father. Okay.
There's still goofy stuff. Let's be clear. This is particularly Split and Glass are still very much in the M. Night Shyamalan realm and have goofy stuff that sneak its way in.
Yeah, I do like. I also like the message of what if you actually believed in your ability to reach your full potential. That is a nice idea. He has these grains of things that make you think for 2 seconds, and then something stupid happens on screen, and you forget about that.
That's what makes Shyamalan like this probably one of the most frustrating directors working, is because outside of The Last Airbender and After Earth, which have no thought, like there's you don't need to think about those films even an iota, period. Every one of his other films, I don't know about The Visit either. That one doesn't really have things that make you think too much afterwards, but everything else has like this grain of
hold on to your anger. That was the summary of The Visit.
Stop. But the rest of them all have like that interesting bottom line that could have been a great film. Like he could have this like amazing, legendary run of films if all of his ideas had just been executed. And unfortunately, only 2 of them were.
He had handed his scripts to one other person. It just seems very clear to me that it's straight full on like vanity. There's so many things that any number of people with even a bare minimum of training would be able to like catch and say, this isn't quite reading. This doesn't quite make enough sense. This is a hole here. He just so many holes. I will say, I think Old has some of the most holes. Old and like The Village. Did not see Lady in the Water. I imagine that has a ton of fucking holes in it too.
And that has one of the worst.
Feel like twists. I was just running through a road full of potholes when I was watching Glass and Split. At the very least, he like picked one idea and he knew where he was going with it the whole time. So it was fine.
I'm really confused. Like now that we've gone through, this is definitively for me, this is Old is Shyamalan's worst film since After Earth. I think it's worse than The Visit. I think it's worse than Glass. I think it's worse than Split. I don't know if I think it's worse than After Earth because After Earth is such nothing that I hardly remember. It's not as bad as Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's not as bad as The Visit. I mean, not The Visit. The Village.
Doesn't it get raised just a little bit above After Earth because it's actually moved into like so bad?
I think so. Funny. Probably, yeah. And it's not just like a clear vehicle to launch his son's career, like Will Smith. So, I mean, it's better than The Village. It's better than The Lady in the Water. I would say it's probably better than The Happening as well, because again, I had some fun. So I guess it's in the top half of Shyamalan's filmography. And you heard how we ranted about it. So that tells you about this filmography. But there are people who are defending this thing to the ends of the earth.
Why? It doesn't make any sense.
People, and that's why I was talking.
M. Night Shyamalan. I don't understand.
Listen. I need you to go on Film Twitter. I need you to go on to Film Twitter. Rand, we need to incorporate you onto Film Twitter.
Go ahead.
Because there are tons of people who are like avid defenders of Old, particularly. And that's why I was saying because I feel like a collective Film Twitter for sure wants Shyamalan to succeed because he's one of the few directors coming up with original ideas still.
No,
but
this is because you're all in an abusive relationship with M. Night Shyamalan, where he was so nice, he was so good to you at the beginning. You know he can be good again if you just keep on giving him another chance. I've been in abusive relationships. It never gets better. Just walk away.
He gives you a compliment or two in each film. Like he's nice to you for a little bit of each film. To like, maybe he's changing. Maybe
he says, "Baby, I'm going to take you on this really cool date. Listen to my idea." And then you go on the date, and it's actually kind of shitty the whole time.
You've actually been led to a beach that makes you get old.
Good. Yeah, you liked that he took you out to do this cool thing. Yeah.
So I think we're both in agreement. Signs and Unbreakable are definitively far and away his top 2 best films. Then I think we're in agreement probably that...
Sixth Sense.
Sorry,
what?
Unbreakable. Oh my God. Sixth Sense.
Signs is like
no.
third.
Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are definitively his top 2. No. And then the next rung down, I would say, is like Split, Signs, Glass.
I think you could put all those kind of in the same area. Yeah.
Next rung down, like The Visit is right there.
The Visit is okay. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not horrible.
Old. And then the rest.
And then everything. That hot pile of garbage at the bottom that I don't even want to expend the like brain cells to sort through them in any semblance of order.
Have you ever gone back to rewatch The Village?
No, absolutely not. There's like three movies I've
no.
seen in my life that I was like upset I had seen. It was this one, Superman Returns. You remember that terrible one? That like
our friend
weird
Leslie
one-off
loves.
Superman movie that like, yes, I don't know why she likes that
Leslie
movie.
enjoys.
The one person I met my entire also, Leslie doesn't like The Godfather, so we have to question her.
All of it. We have to
opinion
question
on
all of the film opinions very heavily.
And
We love you, Leslie, but listen.
And the Hulk, the one with Eric Bana, was. I was like, why is there a mutant poodle fighting? I don't understand.
I mean,
why would they choose a poodle?
I was pretty young, and I was like, oh, look at Eric Bana's butt. So that was kind of my main takeaway from that whole film.
Village was top 3 angriest making films. So I will absolutely not be watching it again.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't even like good enough to be bad. That's why I would put Old like further up there. Where
because
least,
Old
like,
you can have fun. The Village is not fun at all. Like watching it is a chore. And then the payoff is so wretched that you're angry at the end because you're like, what the hell was this?
What did you do? What did you make me sit through? How did you ruin your own story so badly? I don't even understand.
Ren literally took a 15-year break.
I did.
I mean, you watched Split on time, right? That was the next Shyamalan film.
No, I didn't watch Split when it came out. I watched Split at like some point in the past, like maybe probably like a couple of years ago, like when it was on a streaming service. I probably watched it.
That was your return to Shyamalan.
That was
after the
like,
Village ran you out.
He had me with James McAvoy and a sequel to Unbreakable. I actually, you know what? Actually, I don't even think I watched Split until I knew that Glass was coming out. And then I was like, okay, I would like to see how this whole story ties up. Because I really liked Unbreakable a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it. I'm glad I know what happened in his little thing. Yeah, it was fine.
That was not a Village situation.
It was fine.
He did not grab the truck and drive it straight off the bridge. He at least maintained it at a slower speed.
The end, like ta-da!
And then he has showboat in your face, like he just made another masterpiece.
Give me another Oscar! Come on, you know you want to. I'm so good at my job.
Well, that was it.
Embarrassed now to ask for help. You think he like knows maybe, and he's like, I can't. I think they'll know. We know, man. We know.
Yeah, we know. We're on to you.
Just ask for some help. Go co-write with somebody, or just like direct somebody else's script. Yeah. I think he feels like he can't. I think he feels like he will have conceded to not being as awesome as he thinks he is in his own mind if he stops writing his own movies. Listen. I direct and write my own shit. I love when other people write stuff I can direct. That's like half of the job. I don't have to worry about. Take it down, Shyamalan. You got money. Go give somebody else a fucking opportunity. Why don't you use a lady's script? Probably because he's a sexist weirdo.
Yeah, we've already established he's got some weird things going on. But yeah, that was our review for Old, as well as our discussion for the very weird trajectory of M. Night Shyamalan and what could have been in his career.
Trajectory.
Let us know. Did you like Old? Are you one of those crazy people defenders of the film?
Go ahead and at me. I'll tell you why you're wrong.
You can try to convince us. I don't think you'll be successful, but do your best. Also, let us know what is your favorite M. Night Shyamalan film other than The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable?
Or your most rage-inducing.
Yes. And what is
I think we could do a poll
worst
between like Lady in the Water and The Village. It seems like there are strong feelings on both of those.
Yeah, so let us know both, the worst, the best, all in between.
Your theories on what happened in his brain at some point between 1999 and
2021. So add us at
2 decades.
Cinema Snarks on Twitter as well as Instagram. We'll be looking for your opinions there. Also, if you are watching our visual version of the podcast on ChillyBoy Productions YouTube channel, leave those comments down below. We'll just respond to you right then and there. Ren, why don't you let everybody know where they can find and follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ren Manley, at Ren Manley, at Ren Manley.
Yes. Woo!
And you can find me on Instagram at RenniePoo13.
Perfect. And you can find me at ChillyBoy Productions on YouTube as well as Instagram, and ChillyBoy YT on Twitter. So we thank you for listening to us be snarky today, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.